it's Mitch from PickDawgz.com, and it is Wednesday, July the 3rd, 2024, here with your Major League Baseball first 5 inning picks for today. Of course, we're going through the full card of 15 games. We're also going to do today in sports history. Today in sports history, 2011, Novak Djokovic wins his first Wimbledon title. He's won 7 Wimbledon titles total, 24 majors, 98 men's singles titles. I mean, this guy, simply one of the greatest to ever play the game. I know we don't cover a ton of tennis here at PickDawgz. We definitely cover some. We don't really cover it here on our YouTube channel that much, but doesn't mean we don't care. Today in 2011, Novak Djokovic got it all started at Wimbledon. Of course, we've been getting it started here against the books, getting it started early, cashing in the first 5 innings of these Major League Baseball games. Let's rock the books again today. We head over to Cleveland, where the Guardians are taking on the White Sox in an AL Central battle. It's Gavin Williams making his first start of the season for the Guardians, while Eric Fede on the bump here for the White Sox. You know, when we saw Williams last year, pretty decent, pitched over 80 innings, 3.3 and change ERA, was certainly more than capable out there on the hill. Fede this season, he's been more than capable on the hill. The KBO MVP of last season. That's the Korean baseball for those that don't follow all that much. He's got a 3.23 ERA this season and 3.79 over his last 3 starts. Of course, the Guardians have been red hot, leading the Central, but they're hitting just .220 in their last 10 games versus right-handed pitching. Well, the White Sox hitting .214 versus right-handed pitching. More than likely, this game's going to go to the bullpen for the Guardians, with Williams making his first start. The bullpen 3.49 ERA over their last 10, while the White Sox a remarkable 1.58. I think the White Sox have the edge here, and I'll give them the first 5. For our next game, we head to Miami, where the Marlins are taking on the Red Sox. It is Trevor Rogers on the bump for the Marlins and Brian Bayo on the mound for the Red Sox. You know, last year we saw some pretty good things out of Bayo, but he has not been good this season. 5.55 ERA on the season and 9.00 over his last 3 starts. While Trevor Rogers, of course, a former Rookie of the Year, but he's never regained that form. But as of late, pitching some of the best baseball we've seen from him since that rookie season. He's got a 4.87 on the year and 3.26 over his last 3 starts. The Red Sox are hitting left-handed pitching at .237 over their last 10 games, while the Marlins hitting righties at .203, but you got to take into consideration that Bayo has been getting hit extremely hard, and the Marlins hitting far better at home than they are on the road this season. Also, we look at the bullpens, and I know that those aren't going to factor in the first 5 innings, but the Marlins better in that space. If, with these 2 guys, it could go to the bullpens early, but I don't think it does. I'll take the Marlins in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Pittsburgh, where the Pirates are hosting the Cardinals. It's Jared Jones on the mound for the Pirates, Miles Mikolas on the mound for the Cardinals. We've seen the good and bad from both these pitchers, as Jones has been pretty solid most of the season, but like a lot of rookie pitchers, as the season's gone on, he has started to show some wear. Meanwhile, Mikolas started the season really poorly, started to get into form, and then all of a sudden he got blasted last time out. He's got a 5.32 ERA on the season and 7.56 over his last 3 starts, while Jones at 3.66 and 5.40 over his last 3 starts. When we look at the way these teams are hitting right-handed pitching, at least in their recent games, the Pirates at just .201, while the Cards check in at .251 over the last 10 games. But over the course of the season, the Pirates at .221, so better than where they're at, while the Cardinals hitting better than their season average of .244 versus righties. To be honest, I think Jones, when he's got it rolling, is a solid option. And when Mikolas is running bad, you want to be on the other side. I'm going to take the Pirates in the first 5. We head to Washington, where the Nationals take on the Mets. It's Mitchell Parker on the mound for the Nationals, Christian Scott on the mound for the Mets. We haven't seen Scott in about a month, and he has pitched pretty well in spots, but I think the thing about Scott that we've seen is that, man, he catches no breaks whatsoever, and he gets very little run support when he's on the mound. We've seen Scott, he's got a 3.90 ERA on the season, 4.80 the last 3 times he started games. He doesn't go all that deep into games, so that's a little bit on him, but of course he's a young pitcher. Well, Parker has been a pleasant surprise for the Nationals, 3.32 over the season, 3.71 over his last 3 starts. We look at the way the Mets are hitting lefties, though, 308 versus left-handed pitching, while the Nationals 261 versus righties. So it is strength on strength. I just think that Scott certainly pitches well, but he's just one of these guys that just seems to always pay the price for his mistakes. I'm going to take the Nationals at home in the first 5 of this game. For our next game, we head to New York, where the Yankees are taking on the Reds. Carlos Rodon getting the ball here for the Yankees, while it is Andrew Abbott on the mound for the Reds. Rodon is a guy that earlier this season, I didn't feel his numbers were indicative of how he really pitched. And I mean that his numbers actually looked a lot better than how he looked out on the field. And what we've seen lately is while we gained a little bit more faith in him, he has really let us down. And what's happened is he really has regressed to the numbers that we thought he was closer to earlier this year. We see that with his 4.42 ERA on the season, 13.17 ERA over his last 3 starts, while Abbott certainly, better at home, but 3.41 ERA on the season, 4.02 in his last 3 starts. We look at the way these teams are hitting left-handed pitching recently, and the Reds just absolutely clubbing lefties to the tune of 333 over their last 10 games, while the Yankees at 229. Just don't like the way Rodon is looking, and I like the way the Reds bats are looking versus lefties. Going to take the Reds in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Toronto, where the Blue Jays are taking on the Astros. Ronald Blanco gets the ball for the Astros, while it's Kikuchi on the mound for the Blue Jays. Kikuchi has pitched decently, but as of late, he has been hit extremely hard, as his 4.18 ERA from the season, which is much higher than it was a couple of weeks ago, has ballooned to 10.64 over his last 3 starts, while Blanco continues to roll on with a 2.49 ERA on the season, 1.83 over his last 3 starts, playing exceptional baseball, but really not getting credit for it because of that suspension that he took for the sticky stuff. We look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball. The Astros are hitting lefties at 316 over their last 10 games, while the Blue Jays hitting just 233 against right-handed pitching. I just think every which way that you slice this game, the Astros are playing the better baseball overall. Blanco is pitching better, and the Astros are hitting the baseball better. This one says all Astros to me, and I'll take them in the first 5. For our next game, we go to Atlanta, where the Braves are taking on the Giants. It's Chris Sale on the bump for the Braves, and Jordan Hicks gets the ball for the Giants. Of course, Chris Sale has been sensational, 2.79 ERA on the year, 1.89 over his last 3 starts. I think many times this season, he's looked like that guy that has started the All-Star game so many times when he was in the American League. As for Hicks, came over from the Cardinals organization. He has had, some good outings, but he's also been hit a little bit hard recently. 3.36 ERA on the season, but 5.14 over his last 3 starts. We look at the way these teams are hitting, and the Braves are hitting righties at just 185 over their last 10 games, while the Giants are hitting 286 versus left-handed pitching. And oddly enough, when we look at the Giants and their body of work, their best games come in the toughest spots. It's those easy games that they seem to struggle with, or the ones that appear to be easy on paper. I know this one, nothing easy about it, but I think there's just so much value here on the Giants, I can't pass. I'm going to take the Giants for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Texas, where the Rangers are taking on the Padres. John Gray gets the ball here for the Rangers, while Adam Mazur on the mound for the Padres. Mazur got off to a nice start to his career, but he has certainly been hit very hard since that initial outing that we saw him. John Gray was off to a hot start to the season, but he's been rocked recently, so his ERA is certainly on the rise. Gray checks in with a 3.77 ERA, up to 10.93 over his last 3 starts, while Mazur has been consistent, but not in a good way. 7.25 ERA on the season, 6.03 over his last 3 starts. Of course, the Rangers, the defending world champs, have been extremely banged up. The Padres come in hitting .302 over their last 10 games versus right-handed pitching, while the Rangers hitting .215 versus righties. Boy, it has come down in a hurry. Earlier this season, they were batting over .300, for the season against right-handed pitching. The thing is, I like the potential that Mazur has. I don't like what we've seen consistently. I'll think that John Gray gets it done for at least 5 innings. I'll take the Rangers. For the next game, we head to Chicago to Wrigley Field, where the Cubs are hosting the Phillies. Shota Imanaga on the mound for the Cubbies, while Zach Wheeler gets the bump for the Phillies. Wheeler's actually been hit pretty hard in his last 3 starts to the tune of a 5.50 ERA, but Imanaga, who was basically untouchable earlier this season, 7.88 ERA over his last 3 starts, ballooning his regular season ERA up to 3.07, in 15 starts that he's made. So he is far from the invincible pitcher that we saw about a month ago. We look at the way the Phillies are hitting the ball, and versus lefties, .257. Of course, they're hitting righties even better than that. And the Cubs, well, they haven't really been hitting anything at all. And Craig Counsell, who's seen as this genius of a manager when it comes to managing the pitching staff, he's looked even less than just ordinary. The Cubs have not been playing well coming into this series. Dropping 2 of 8, dropping 6 of 8. And I don't think that facing this Phillies lineup is what the doctor ordered. I'm going to take the Phillies in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Minnesota, where the Twins are taking on the Tigers. It's David Festa on the bump here for the Twins, and Jack Flaherty on the mound for the Tigers. We've seen Festa make 1 start. He allowed 7 hits in 5 innings of work to the tune of a 9.0 ERA. But, in 1 start, that really doesn't mean all that much. Flaherty has really pitched well this season. Of course, the former Cardinal cast-off couldn't stick with the Orioles either, and he's got a 3.24 ERA, though, for the Tigers, 3.31 over his last 3 starts. Flaherty has been an absolute strikeout machine, dominating out there on the mound, but it hasn't helped the Tigers, whose bats just haven't come through. I think Festa certainly showed that he has a lot of the stuff that people believe that he had, as the Twins ended up winning that game that he gave up those runs in. So I don't think anyone is all that concerned about his ability. You look at the way these teams are hitting, and the Tigers have just been absolutely pathetic against righties, hitting 184 over their last 10 games. Well, the Twins, 244, and, against lefties, nearly 400. But I'll just take the Twins in the first 5 of this one. We go to Kansas City, where the Royals are taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. It's Michael Wacha on the bump for the Royals, and it's Ryan Pepiot on the mound for the Rays. Wacha has been outstanding this season, and we've seen him around, and generally he rarely has come through, but boy, 3.91 ERA for the season, 2.30 over his last 3 starts, while Pepiot, the central figure in that Tyler Glasnow trade to Los Angeles, 4.40 ERA on the season, 5.40 over his last 3 starts. But the thing that we know about the Tampa Bay Rays is, well, they are really starting to heat up, and when that happens, look out. And especially, you want to maybe avoid them in the first game of the series, but after that, boy, that's where they seem to always put it together. We look at the way these teams are hitting right-handed pitching, and the Royals hitting is just starting to fall off the chart here, hitting just 218 versus righties over their last 10 games, 204 versus lefties, while the Rays hitting 246 versus right-handed pitching over the last 10, 333 for lefties. Look out for the Tampa Bay Rays. We're taking them in the first 5 here as well. For our next game, we go to Colorado, where the Rockies are taking on the Brewers. Dakota Hudson on the mound for the Rockies, while Colin Rea gets the ball for the Brewers. The Brewers have had no luck but bad luck when they play in Colorado, losing there early and often. Boy, it has been just a horrible run, hitting about less than 30% winning percentage against the Colorado Rockies. in certain teams, they just seem to have other teams' numbers. But Dakota Hudson, who's on the mound here for the Rockies, has been awful. 5.84 ERA on the season, 10.80 over his last 3 starts. While Colin Rea doesn't have stellar numbers, he has certainly held it together with a 3.61 ERA on the season and 4.86 over his last 3 starts. Look at the way these teams are hitting right-handed pitching recently. The Brewers at 279 versus righties and the Rockies at 191 versus righties. We break it down to a subset of their last 10 games. Just think though, I know the Rockies have dominated. I just think this is a game where the Brewers really have a big edge. I'm going to take the Brewers in the first 5. In our next game, we head to Oakland where the A's are hosting the Los Angeles Angels. It is Joey Estes on the mound for the A's and Davis Daniel on the mound for the Angels. We haven't seen a ton of Daniel this season, but what we have seen, well, no one's really crossing the plate on him. He's given up just 4 hits in 8 innings of work. We look at Estes, he's got a 5.24 ERA in the season, 6.28 over his last 3 starts. We know the Angels win less than 30% of the times that they go to Oakland, but maybe it's just a different time right now because the Angels have at least entered this series playing some of the hotter baseball, while the A's just seem to be trudging along looking for a place to lie down. We look at the way these teams are hitting righties, and the Angels hitting righties significantly better. And while the Angels' numbers, overall when it comes to hitting aren't anything impressive, what is impressive has been their play of late, as they have really been taking care of business. And while they're certainly not a contender, they're not going to the playoffs, they are playing their best baseball right now. I'm going to take the Angels in the first 5 of this game. For our next game, we head to Seattle where the Mariners are taking on the Baltimore Orioles. It's Logan Gilbert on the mound for the Mariners and Corbin Burns getting the ball here for the Orioles. This is a good matchup of 2 good pitchers. Gilbert checks in with a 2.72 ERA on the season, 0.82 over his last 3 starts. Well, Burns has been absolutely dominant as well, pitching, just outstanding as he usually does all season long. The thing is, and we've seen throughout his career, the thing about Burns is, though, that you have to keep in mind is that he's not like a no-hitter type guy. He definitely gives up some hits, but the thing is, facing this Mariners lineup, I think he might be in business here. The Mariners hitting just 200 over their last 10 games versus right-handed pitching, really just 220 for the season. I keep waiting for Gilbert's demise, and as you heard from his numbers, that 0.82 over his last 3 starts don't show it happening all that soon, but the thing is, the Orioles hitting 269 versus right-handed pitching over their last 10 games. I think they have a big edge. I'll take the Orioles in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Los Angeles where the Dodgers are taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Gavin Stone gets the ball for the Dodgers, and it's Jordan Montgomery on the mound for the Diamondbacks. Jordan Montgomery has had a couple of decent outings this year, but other than that, he has just looked lost out on the mound. 6.44 ERA on the season, 5.93 over his last 3 starts, while Gavin Stone has kind of flown under the radar here for the Dodgers. 2.73 ERA on the season and 2.11 over his last 3 starts. Just the Dodgers are used to having these really big names in the pitching staff, and even, this season, Glasnow, Yamamoto, much bigger names than Gavin Stone, but Stone's numbers are far better than either of those guys. When we look at the way that these teams are hitting the baseball, the Dodgers clubbing lefties to the tune of 286 over their last 10 games, while the Diamondbacks just 225 versus right-handed pitching. I try and stay clear of the Dodgers because there's usually no value there, but I'm going to lay the run line with the Dodgers in this one for the first 5. Well, that wraps up today's first 5 innings picks. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow for the 4th of July schedule. We have all day and all night baseball going on. Pretty exciting card. And of course, I can't wait for NFL preseason football to start next month, and we'll start covering the first halves and first 5 innings once again. Of course, if you're looking for my best bets, the games I'm betting today, as well as best bets from the world's best handicappers, documented premium picks over at PickDawgz.com under the premium picks tab. I also got a link in the description of this video. Of course, we also have PickDawgz merch like this cool Nike Dry Fit hoodie that I'm wearing, along with the hat I'm wearing, as well as much more. Click on the merch tab over at PickDawgz.com, or once again, I've got a link in the description. This is Mitch. Thanks for joining me. I've had an awesome time doing this video with you today, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow and talking about more first 5 innings.